Everything comes down to this. Visuals, slow motion exterior shots of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse, tense music builds, news ticker overlays, verdict watch begins, narrator dramatic, curious tone. After 7 explosive weeks, 34 witnesses, a leaked video the world wasn't supposed to see, the fate of Sean Diddy Combs now rests in the hands of 12 strangers. Cut to black screen, single word in bold white font, verdict watch. Narrator, sharper tone, the courtroom is silent. No more testimony. No more arguments. The jury has been handed the blueprint, and now the world waits. Cut to law and crime footage of Chris Stewart at the anchor desk. Narrator, voice layering with anchor audio. The countdown has officially begun, and with the July 4th holiday approaching fast, the clock isn't just ticking, it's sprinting. Visual clock animation ticking down, labeled Deliberation begins. Day 1. Narrator, lower, intense delivery. One decision could upend the career of one of the biggest names in music, or confirm the fears behind years of whispers, headlines, and lawsuits. Cut to montage of Diddy in court, Cassie on the stand, then fade to jury sketch artist drawings. Narrator suspenseful. This isn't just a trial, it's the reckoning of a cultural empire. Quick flash to black. Silent. Narrator whispered, chilling. Verdict watch has begun, and nothing is off the table. Jury tension, the July 4th deadline pressure. Visual close-up shots of the courthouse exterior, jurors entering and leaving, with an overlay calendar flipping rapidly toward July 4th. Narrator, urgent, conversational. The jurors have one massive hurdle ahead of them, the looming 4th of July holiday. Normally a day off, but this time, it's like a ticking bomb in their minds. Will they reach a verdict before the fireworks start? Cut to experts from the live panel discussing jury deliberations. Expert clip Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney. A long deliberation means more than 3 or 4 days. And with 5 serious charges on the table, plus 34 prosecution witnesses, it's a lot to unpack. Visual split screen with calendar showing Thursday circled, fading into the jury room door closing. Narrator casual, slightly speculative. Most juries don't want to come back after a holiday. So if the verdict doesn't drop by Thursday, it's likely they'll take a break, adding to the suspense. Visual slow pan inside an empty jury deliberation room, echoing footsteps. Narrator, dramatic. But here's the twist. The jurors aren't just weighing facts. They're grappling with the weight of a global spotlight, celebrity influence, and years of explosive testimony. Cut to clips of exhausted jurors, media cameras flashing, and a clock speeding through time. Narrator, intense, curious. Can 12 people under this pressure cooker see through the glitz and decide what's real? Or will the deadline and the drama tip the scale? Visual countdown timer overlay fades in. Deliberation clock. Narrator, lower voice, suspenseful. The race is on, and every second counts. A day in the life of Diddy at MD Common Areas, small basketball court. Narrator, calm, factual. While the jury deliberates, Sean Diddy Combs remains confined at the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York, a place far from the glitz of red carpets. Cut to interview clips or voiceover from Dr. Dwayne Hendricks, former associate warden at MDC. Expert voiceover, Dr. Hendricks. Diddy's day starts with breakfast brought to his unit. He spends most of the day outside his cell in an open dorm setting, watching TV, talking on the phone, and sometimes hitting the small workout area or basketball court. Visual generic footage of inmates exercising, using phone booths, medical staff doing rounds. Narrator, informative. It's a routine far removed from the fame and fortune. Medical staff check on inmates daily, and family visits are possible, something Diddy likely leaned on during this intense time. Visual court footage or exterior courthouse shots. Narrator, slightly reflective. And during jury deliberation, Diddy stays close, held either in a courthouse holding area or a nearby cell, meeting with his attorneys awaiting the fate decided behind those closed doors. Cut to close-up of hands, clenching and unclenching, symbolizing tension. Narrator, dramatic tone. Behind bars and beyond the courtroom, every moment is heavy with anticipation. Jury instructions and what jurors are told. Visual, exterior shot of the courthouse, then cut to courtroom footage or reenactment of a judge speaking. Narrator, clear and engaging. Before the jury begins their deliberations, The judge delivers detailed instructions, laying out their duties, the law, and how they must weigh the evidence presented. Visual close-up on a courtroom gavel, then a judge speaking at the bench. Expert voiceover, Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney. The jury receives general instructions on their conduct, including how to assess evidence using common sense. They're also walked through the specific charges, racketeering, trafficking, and more, so they understand exactly what the prosecution must prove. Visual animated graphic, breaking down racketeering, and transportation with intent to engage in prostitution. Narrate, explaining these instructions can take hours, sometimes up to 2, because each charge comes with its own legal requirements the jurors need to grasp before deciding guilt or innocence. Visual jury members entering the deliberation room. Narrator, with anticipation. Once the instructions conclude, the weight of the decision rests squarely on the 12 jurors tasked with dissecting complex testimony and evidence to deliver a verdict that will change lives forever. Key witnesses and testimonies that could sway the jury, visual photos or courtroom sketches of key witnesses like Cassie Ventura, Jane Doe, and Mia. Narrator, intriguing and conversational. After 7 intense weeks of testimony, certain witnesses stand out, especially Cassie Ventura, whose relationship with Diddy took center stage. Visual clips or stills referencing Cassie's testimony, blurred for privacy or with text overlays. Narrator, explaining Cassie described how she met Diddy at just 19, signed a massive album deal, but says her career was stifled. She was on the stand for days, sharing harrowing details, especially about a disturbing 2016 hotel incident, caught on video. Visual, a blurred recreation or symbolic image hinting at the intercontinental video controversy. Narrator, building tension. That video became a flashpoint, showing a side of the story that shook the courtroom and sparked heated debate. Visual clips or mentions of other pivotal witnesses. Jane and Mia. Narrator, matter of fact, alongside Cassie, witnesses like Jane and Mia offered critical insights, painting a complex picture that jurors can't ignore. Visual graphic showing money exchange or a confidential deal. Narrator, dramatic. And then there's the explosive testimony about a $100,000 cash payment to a security guard intended to suppress that very video. Details like this could tip the scales in a high-stakes trial like this. Life behind bars, what Diddy's days look like during trial, visual exterior shots of the Metro Detention Center, then cut to generic images of a detention facility's daily routine. Narrator, calm, informative, while the jury weighs their decision. Sean Diddy Combs is spending his days inside New York's Metro Detention Center, a far cry from the glitz and glamour he's known for. Visual photos or graphics illustrating a typical detention center day morning meals. Open pods, recreation. Narrator, detailing, as a pre-trial detainee, Diddy is in an open housing unit, not locked in a cell all day. He can watch TV, make phone calls, and even hit a small basketball court to stay active. Visual generic footage or illustrations of visitation rooms. Narrator, humanizing, family and friends are allowed visits, so he's likely leaning on that support more than ever as the pressure builds. Visual clock graphics showing the routine daily schedule. Narrator, describing, days follow a strict routine, meals delivered to the unit, medical check-ins, and set times for moving about. It's a mundane, confined existence compared to his life outside. Visual overlay text, no special treatment. Narrator, clarifying, despite his fame, Diddy reportedly receives no special treatment beyond being housed in a less restrictive area reserved for nonviolent inmates. What's next? Jury deliberations and verdict expectations. Visual courtroom exterior, jury entering deliberation room, clock ticking. Narrator, anticipatory tone. With closing arguments finished, the case now rests entirely in the hands of the 12 jurors. Visual animated breakdown of jury deliberation process, jury room, evidence being reviewed. Narrator, explaining, the jury will first receive detailed instructions from the judge, a legal roadmap guiding how to evaluate the evidence, and what standards must be met for conviction. Visual calendar highlighting the 4th of July holiday, clocks, day passing imagery. Narrator, highlighting, deliberations could last days, but with the upcoming July 4th holiday, jurors might feel pressure to reach a verdict sooner or risk a break in proceeding. Visual animated scales of justice balancing, text 5 charges, 34 witnesses. Narrator, reminding, this trial involved 5 serious charges and testimony from over 30 witnesses, making the jury's task complex and weighty. Visual slow zoom on courthouse, people waiting outside. Narrator, speculative. Will the jurors return a verdict quickly, or will deliberations drag on? The world waits, watching closely as justice unfolds. The impact, what a verdict means for Diddy and beyond. Visual montage of Sean Diddy Combs' career highlights, music awards, concerts, public appearances. Narrator, reflective. Sean Diddy Combs is more than a defendant, he's a cultural icon, a businessman, and a figure whose influence stretches far beyond the courtroom. Visual split screen, courtroom versus fans and media coverage. Narrator, serious, a conviction could mean years behind bars, potentially ending or forever altering his career. Visual headlines flashing, high-profile trial, industry shaken, legal precedent. Narrator, analytical, but the verdict also sends ripples through the music industry and beyond, raising questions about accountability, power, and the cost of celebrity. Visual crowd reactions, social media posts, protests, or support rallies. Narrator, engaging. No matter the outcome, this case will be dissected, debated, and remembered for years to come. Visual fade out with courthouse and scales of justice. Narrator, closing. For Diddy, the verdict isn't just about a trial, it's about legacy.